We were all worried about Guild Wars 2 for a while now. ArenaNet's first foray into the 1-year expansion model that they were already married to before Secrets of the Obscure even launched was initially exciting. But by the end of SOTO, that excitement was replaced with concern. But ArenaNet has quelled our fears. Janthier Wilds has even overtaken Path of Fire as my favorite expansion overall. But how can we be sure ArenaNet's trajectory has improved and this isn't just a fluke? Can you hang your hat on this being a go-to MMO still? To analyze that, we're going to look at two key features here today: the accessibility of the expansion's content and the fun factor of that content. For accessibility, we're looking for answers to a few questions. How easy is it to access the new content? How easy is it for an average player to complete said content? And how accessible is all of the content in the expansion, not just the storyline? Well, for starters, it's an incredibly accessible expansion. The newly improved Warclaw mount is made available to new players very early in this expansion, as is the new Spear unlock and even the Homestead, all obtainable within a few short hours of gameplay, letting you play around with the new features quickly, but expanding upon them the more time you spend inside of the expansion, leveling up your masteries. This is great. For most games, we love to see a low floor because you can always raise the ceiling. Now, ArenaNet has historically had a very frustrating habit of gating story progress behind mastery point progress that isn't telegraphed at all by the story, meaning if you don't look up any guides, it's possible to just get stonewalled for a while. They avoid this issue here in Janthier, as the only mastery needed for your story needs is a level 1 mastery point that makes perfect sense in the context of the story at that time and is an overall account upgrade. From a narrative perspective, it does continue the overall general thread of the entire Guild Wars 2 story up to this point, with nods of you being the former Pact commander, old friendships, and is closely tied to the Secrets of the Obscure main characters. I would say if you've only played Secrets of the Obscure, you're probably going to be pretty okay diving into the wilds, though I personally prefer the entire picture even in live service games like this. Now, how accessible is all of the content for an average player? As of now, all new content is entirely open world, meaning you don't need to worry about min-max builds or having people to run content with. The maps are currently populated enough to complete just about anything you'd like, as long as you toss out a map chat request. I will say that I do have some concerns for the longevity of this. Depending on how long legendary backpacks and spears can keep people in these areas after the expansion cycle has come to rest, some accessibility may suffer. There's been a marked uptick in the average difficulty of champion level events, and while they are significantly more fun and engaging than others in the past, essentially being a bounty level threat, this comes at the cost of possibly making it more difficult for future players to complete the achievements for some things. I hope to be proven wrong on this, but enough about open world content. Don't we have new legendaries and raids? Absolutely. Now, in addition to the upcoming raid, ArenaNet has made the wonderful promise that in addition to the 10-man coordinated effort, they will be releasing the raid as part of the storyline that you'll play through personally, as well as a 50-player convergence. While there will be minor differences between versions, the overall story will be the same, and this is fantastic. Guild Wars 2, with its horizontal progression system, has always appealed to a wider player base that, much like myself, may not have the time to join any consistent raiding teams. Those days are gone for me for now, and I think this is a great way to acknowledge the wider player base. While the raiders will get their satisfaction from mechanical superiority over the task set before them, and I assume some unique rewards, the story will be able to be seen firsthand by everyone, also meaning that ArenaNet doesn't have to be concerned spending precious development time on something that only a smaller portion of the player base may utilize. As for legendaries, we are seeing our first open world PvE backpack. Solo players can rejoice at long last. Previously, the only PvE backpack was from Fractals, but Sizzix, why does that matter? I mean, if they're so casual that they don't want to get optimized build and run difficult content, why would they care about legendary gear? Won't it still take tons of time for them to get? Well, the answer to that is yes. I counter with more options are always better, when those options don't take anything away from those who already did or were obtaining it in a previous manner. While I think it's perfectly okay to have exclusive skins locked behind specific game modes, The overall utility of a legendary item being accessible through any of the main methods of play, solo PvE, group PvE, structured PvP, and world versus world, is something I believe in. So, to summarize, ArenaNet has made the new items in the expansion extremely accessible for all by baking them into the story early, so no one should be left feeling frustrated the thing they were most excited to try, whether it be war claws, spears, or homesteads, is locked too far away. And we don't have any annoying mastery walls that we have to break through, unlike some previous expansions. Average players should have a fair enough time making it through everything as of now, with possible longevity issues in the far future, especially for solo completionists with some of the current event scaling. And on top of that, the future promises of the final piece of legendary backpack accessibility, and even allowing non-raiding players to experience the upcoming raid's storyline in a slightly different light. Janthier Wilds is clearly the most across-the-board accessible content update to date thus far, while achieving the most across-the-board in terms of gameplay additions. And ArenaNet has avoided several traditional pitfalls, but who cares if it's accessible if the actual content is a piece of Dolyak dung? While everyone's idea of fun is different, we can examine how successfully ArenaNet is targeting and executing on each type of category of gameplay in Guild Wars 2, that a wide variety of players will find fun based on their preferred play. Now, PvP was actually quite interesting this time around. With Janthier Wilds, we actually got a unique armor skin for structured PvP and world versus world that is only obtainable from those modes for what is the first time in ages, as far as I can remember. Possibly the only time from expansion content. As I stated previously about the new PvE legendary backpack, having game mode specific visual elements is perfectly fine and actually very healthy for the game to encourage people to get out of their comfort zone and try exploring other modes to get a thing that they like. I'm a bit biased towards this, especially for our PvP modes, because they've been shown so little love over the years. So this is great, and I'd love to see more in the future. On top of this, we are getting our first new structured PvP mode in ages called Push, where teams will compete to push the objective to the enemy base, basically in a tug-of-war style mode. While this isn't technically part of the Janthier Wilds expansion update track, as according to their post previously, it is being debuted in the current expansion's content update cycle, so I'm chalking it up to this time period of Guild Wars 2 development. We haven't seen a new mode since 2015 when Stronghold was released, and we haven't seen any new maps released since 2019. Yikes. I know I speak for everyone when I say it's about time. While Push is still in early development and testing phases, I still see Janthier Wilds PvP updates as an absolute win compared to the overall track record. ArenaNet seems to be committing more dev power to making these modes worth time, and I'll give them daps for that so we can hopefully continue that trend. These are good starting points, but we've got a lot of catching up to do on that front. Now, as far as group PvE, the horizons look great, just as PvP does, if not a little bit better. In the next content update, the first new raid since 2019 is set to drop, and that's obviously fantastic news. What exactly that's going to look and play like is anyone's guess. We also have the challenge mode and legendary modes coming out in update 2 even further down the line, which is even more excellent news for you dedicated to mastery of your craft. In addition, we're getting another new fractal coming in update 4 alongside the convergence challenge mode, really rounding out the group PvE content available to all of us here. So we've got a little bit of love coming for world versus world, a little bit more still for PvP players, and a complete arsenal of group PvE content coming during this expansion cycle. But what about solo PvE? For starters, we have a wide variety of events available to us, from non-combat events like managing the hot springs or doing a jumping puzzle across some trees, to multi-part combat events like the Bog Queen. In addition, many of these events utilize the new Warclaw mount features incredibly well. From chain pulling down trees to collect lumber for Coden, or wrangling a reindeer so you can beat the crap out of it, there's events that can make every type of player happy. Between those events, or more likely during those events, there's also the return of tasks, better known as hearts. Not to mention, they improved the previous repeatable heart system by making them give you more rewards from the achievements as you continue them. While I was initially hoping that we would unlock additional rewards as we leveled the hearts up, similar to a reputation system in other games, they're still better than previous iterations of repeatable hearts and are generally well designed. Janthier Sentry has some issues, but ArenaNet has actually been making tweaks to that as well, so hopefully they'll find a better balance in the third map and retroactively fix Janthier Sentry. But if you don't have time or don't want to do those hearts, you can still earn completion by doing events unrelated to hearts that will typically reward you with renown tokens that once you complete a mastery, you can turn 4 of these tokens in to complete a heart each day at each heart. So even if you're strapped on time or just prefer to run around eventing and not really care about the hearts themselves, you can still reap the rewards of the task system. And just like legendary backpacks, this is more options, and more options is good. All right, that's great, but that's just map filler, you might say. But what else do we have? So for starters, how about the first collection quest that starts from the Wizard's Vault? That's a really cool idea. Or how about all of the other genuinely interesting side quests like cryptid hunting or code and matchmaking? We finally got some jumping puzzles again. Even the typical go read these books side quests, if you actually pay attention, are weaved into the narrative of the open world in very interesting and thought out ways. The entire expansion feels full of life and care. And color! We got color adventures. We are so back. The storyline does a great job of focusing on a few specific characters to get us invested in them. Care what they have to say, what's happened to them, how these events are affecting and could affect them. The writing has been wonderful as well this time around, Stoic Alder having one of my favorite lines about grief that I've ever heard, and I will not spoil in this video. There's good development of characters, there's good tie-in, and I'm interested in the next part of the story. And I can remember characters' names this time around. The only complaint I've seen people have is that there's a lot of talking and that Stoic Alder talks slowly. And if that's the biggest complaint you can muster, then that's a pretty good story. After all, Jurassic Park isn't a story about dinosaurs, and Janthier Wilds isn't a story about killing the next big enemy. It's about the people. Now, fun is subjective. I can't tell you if you specifically will have fun in any single one of these categories. But they've gone above and beyond compared to previous iterations so far to hit the nail on the head in every single category of gameplay, current and upcoming. There's literally something for everyone coming in this content expansion. From corner to corner in this current content cycle, I can actually feel the care and dedication ArenaNet tried and successfully placed into our beloved game. While this expansion isn't fully out yet, the writing is on the wall more than ever that they can truly create amazing content inside of these one-year development bubbles. Guild Wars 2 is currently better than ever, and I believe in ArenaNet. And I believe since you're here, you'll enjoy clicking this video right here and spending some more time with me as I play only Thief, a class that I'm terrible at, for an entire month.